In the winter of 1922, the cold Bavarian landscape was oppressive with a feeling of dread. In a rural farm in Germany, a killer had just slaughtered an entire family, and for days after casually lived among the corpses he had left behind. The Hinterkaifeck farm housed 3 generations. Victoria Gabriel was a 35-year-old widow. Her husband, Karl, had been reportedly killed in Arras, France by mortar shells in December 1914. In the home were Cecilia Gruber, 72, and Andreas Gruber, 64, Victoria's parents, along with Cecilia, age 7, named after her grandmother, and Josef, age 2. Also on the farm was their maid, who 6 months prior to the murders suddenly quit the job with the family. The story about this suggests that she heard noises coming from the attic and felt as if she were being watched. Her police statement omits any such tales, however. She was to be replaced by a new maid, 44-year-old Maria Baumgartner. This was not the only foreshadowing of impending danger. Living in a rural area, it is important to stay vigilant. In March of 1922, grandfather Andreas Gruber found a peculiar item. A newspaper was left on the property. Thinking it odd, Andreas assumed the newspaper had belonged to the mail carrier. It was later revealed that nobody in the area was subscribed to the paper. Finally, Andreas told neighbors that he saw 2 pairs of footprints leading from the forest to the family farm. Ignoring these signs proved to be, in the end, fatal. Neighbors visiting the farm found the place vacant and lifeless. Knocking at the door left no answer. Nobody was seen around the property tending to any tasks. Even the family dog was not seen to greet visitors. On Monday, April 3rd, the mail carrier Josef Meyer found that Saturday's mail still lay exactly as he had left it. The next day, Albert Hoffner went to repair an engine of the food chopper. He saw nobody, and after waiting an hour began his work, which took over 4 hours, and left. Neighbor Lauren Schlittenbauer gathered with him Jacob Siegel and Michael Pull to investigate the farm on April 4th. Quickly, the neighbors found to their dismay and horror the scene of a devastating crime. First, they were met by locked doors on the house. With no response, they moved to the barn to find the first victims. Under a board and some hay were the bodies of Andreas, his wife, Victoria, and her daughter. All 4 of them had blows to the head and severely brutalized faces. The elder Cecilia showed signs of strangulation, whilst the younger had clearly died a more agonizing death, having torn out her own hair as she lay slowly bleeding out over several hours. Through an adjoining hallway, Schlittenbauer entered the home through the barn to unlock the house, and the investigation continued. Maria, the new maid, was found killed in bed, having barely settled into her new role. Young 2-year-old Josef, too, found dead in his crib. These 2 also killed by trauma to the skull. The news spread, as it tends to do in small country areas, and others came to see the gruesome sight for themselves, in the act altering and thus destroying the crime scene. Inspector George Reinruber from Munich investigated the crime scene. Due to the intrusive neighbors' actions and their unhelpful speculations, piecing together a report was difficult. It seemed that the 4 family members in the barn had perhaps been lured out one by one for the killer to attack. Examinations of the bodies discovered the weapon was likely a mattock, but no such thing was found on the property. The first thought of motive was robbery. Many people in the area, from vagrants to travelers and even fellow community members, were scrutinized. However, when the discovery of the family fortune was found untouched, they dropped this line of investigations. A chilling fact discovered is that the killer had seemingly resided in the house days after carrying out the brutal murders. With no clear motive and no witnesses and scant forensic evidence, a solid suspect was never pinned down. In desperation, even the dead husband was suspected, but with enough credible witnesses to his death, this theory was discarded. Over time, more than 100 people were listed as suspects, and ultimately all leads went cold. The file was closed in 1955, and the final interrogation took place in 1986. After all this, the structures on the farm were demolished, and in its place now stands a memorial shrine to the family and their tragic end.